The first thing you need to understand about the Zylothians is that their tails are sacred. Not just sacred in the way humans might consider a family heirloom or a religious artifact, but sacred in the sense that touching one without explicit permission is akin to declaring war, proposing marriage, and signing a blood pact all at once. It's a cultural taboo so deeply ingrained in their society that even their children know better than to play grab-ass with each other's tails. So, when Ensign Mira Patel, a human biologist aboard the interstellar research vessel SS Odyssey, absent-mindedly reached out and touched the tail of a Zylothian diplomat during a cultural exchange, she had no idea she'd just ignited an intergalactic incident. The Zylothian in question, Ambassador Thrix, was a towering feline-like alien with shimmering silver fur, piercing violet eyes, and a tail that seemed to have a life of its own. It swished elegantly as he explained the intricacies of Zylothian diplomacy to the human crew. Mira, fascinated by the way his tail moved, almost like it was conducting an invisible orchestra, had been taking notes on her datapad. But then curiosity got the better of her. "I wonder if it's prehensile," she muttered to herself, reaching out and giving the tail a quick, experimental tug. The room froze. Thrix's tail stiffened, his fur bristled, and his violet eyes widened in shock. The other Zylothians in the room let out a collective gasp, their tails puffing up like bottle brushes. Even the humans, who had no idea what was happening, could feel the tension in the air. "Ensign Patel," Captain Reyes barked, her voice cutting through the silence. "What in the stars do you think you're doing?" Mira blinked, suddenly realizing she might have made a mistake. I was just curious." Thrix turned to face her slowly, his expression unreadable. "Human," he said, his voice low and measured. "Do you realize what you've just done?" Mira swallowed hard. "I touched your tail." "You touched my tail," Thrix repeated, as if she'd just confessed to assassinating his entire bloodline. "Do you understand the gravity of this act?" Mira glanced around the room, hoping someone would explain what was going on. But the humans looked just as confused as she was, and the Zylothians looked like they were about to declare war. I'm sorry," she offered weakly. Thrix's tail twitched, and he took a step closer to her. "Sorry is not enough, human. You have initiated a bond that cannot be broken. By touching my tail, you have claimed me as your mate." Mira's jaw dropped. What?" Captain Reyes pinched the bridge of her nose. "Ensign Patel, I swear to the stars, if you've just married an alien diplomat." It turned out Mira had, in fact, just married an alien diplomat. According to Zylothian customs, touching someone's tail without permission was the ultimate act of intimacy, reserved only for those who wished to declare their undying love and commitment. It was a bond that could only be dissolved through a complex and highly ritualized process involving the exchange of rare gemstones, the recitation of ancient poetry, and in some cases a duel to the death. Mira tried to explain that she hadn't meant to propose, that she was just curious about his tail's biomechanics, but the Zylothians weren't having it. As far as they were concerned, she was now Thrix's mate, and there was no going back. "This is a disaster," Captain Reyes muttered, pacing the length of the briefing room. "The Zylothians are one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. If they think we've insulted them..." "I didn't mean to insult anyone," Mira protested. "I just wanted to know if his tail was prehensile." "Well, now you're married to it," Reyes snapped. "Congratulations." Over the next few days, Mira did her best to avoid Thrix, but it wasn't easy. As her mate, he seemed to feel obligated to follow her everywhere, his tail swishing behind him like a disapproving parent. He even showed up at her lab, watching silently as she worked. "You don't have to do this, you know," she said finally, unable to take the awkward silence any longer. I didn't mean to, propose. Cthrix tilted his head, his violet eyes studying her. You humans are strange creatures. You act without thinking, yet you are capable of great compassion and ingenuity. It is intriguing. Mira blinked. Thanks. Perhaps this bond is not such a terrible thing, Cthrix continued. It is rare for a Zylothian to form a connection with a human. We could learn much from each other. Mira wasn't sure how to respond to that. On one hand, she didn't want to be married to an alien diplomat. On the other hand, Cthrix was kind of hot. In a tall, furry, vaguely threatening sort of way. Things came to a head when the Zylothian delegation announced they were returning to their homeworld and taking Mira with them. Absolutely not, Captain Reyes said, crossing her arms. Ensign Patel is a member of my crew. You can't just take her. She is my mate, Cthrix replied calmly. By our laws, she belongs with me. I don't belong to anyone, Mira protested. Cthrix's tail twitched. You touched my tail, human. You made your choice. Mira groaned. I didn't know it was a choice. In the end, a compromise was reached. Mira would accompany Cthrix to Zyloth for a period of 1 standard year, during which time they would attempt to understand and honor their bond. If at the end of that year either of them wished to dissolve the bond, they would be free to do so. Mira wasn't thrilled about the arrangement, but she had to admit, it was better than being dragged into an intergalactic war. Life on Zyloth was interesting. The planet was a lush, vibrant world filled with towering crystal spires and shimmering forests. The Zylothians were a proud and ancient species, with a culture that revolved around honor, tradition, and apparently really sensitive tales. Mira did her best to adapt. She learned the language, studied the customs, and even tried her hand at Zylothian cuisine, which to her surprise was delicious. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. Cthrix, for his part, was surprisingly patient. He taught her about Zylothian history, introduced her to his family, and even let her examine his tail under a microscope, though he insisted on being present for the entire process. You are different, he said one evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the city. But perhaps that is not a bad thing. Mira smiled faintly. You're not so bad yourself, furball. Cthrix's tail swished, and for the first time, Mira thought she saw a hint of amusement in his violet eyes. As the year drew to a close, Mira found herself facing a difficult decision. She had grown to care for Cthrix in her own way, but she wasn't sure if that was enough to sustain a lifelong bond. I don't know what to do, she confessed to Captain Reyes during a subspace call. I mean, he's great and all, but he's an alien. And I'm a human. How would that even work? Reyes sighed. Mira, you're the one who touched his tail. You're the one who has to live with the consequences. But whatever you decide, just remember, you're not alone. In the end, Mira decided to stay. Not because she felt obligated, but because she realized that, somewhere along the way, she'd come to see Zyloth as her home, and Cthrix as her family. You're stuck with me, furball, she said, giving his tail a playful tug.